I uncovered 3 unbelievably terrifying true stories from summer nights, if you dare to listen. I never should have opened that door. I was just another night, a regular summer evening. The sun slipped behind darkening clouds, casting a shadow over my quiet street. My heart thumped too loudly. There was something off about this night. I was in my room, a familiar space cluttered with memories. The smell of old books and dust mingled with a faint chill in the air. A breeze whispered through the slightly ajar window, sending chills down my spine. I glanced at my phone. The hour was late. A perfect time for horror stories. I settled into my bed, anticipation and unease mixing in my gut. That's when I heard it. A soft rustle. I froze. It felt like the whispering shadows around me were alive. Then, a thud. My pulse raced. I peeked outside but saw only the stillness of the night. Nothing moved. Did I imagine it? The ominous quiet pressed on my chest. As if on cue, a loud bang echoed from the living room. I jumped. The sound sliced through the silence like a knife. I bit my lip, heart pounding like a drum. Curiosity pulled me toward the door. My legs felt heavy, each step a struggle. I gripped the doorknob. It was ice cold. Taking a deep breath, I twisted the knob. The creak of the door echoed hauntingly. What would I find? Shadows danced in the dim light. I could almost hear the darkness breathing. Another thud came from behind the sofa. My breath caught. I was not alone. I could feel a presence, something lurking, watching. A rustle again. My hands trembled as I took another step forward. Was I brave or just foolish? Suddenly, the temperature dropped. My skin prickled with unease. Then, silence. An unbearable silence that stretched and twisted my insides. I could hardly think. A figure, or was it a shadow? I blinked hard, hoping it would vanish. My thoughts spiraled. What if it was real? Before I could react, a scream burst from the depths of my mind. It flared up like a wildfire, igniting every nerve in my body. What was happening? The shadows around me seemed to twist and converge. I stumbled back, gasping for air. My heart raced, fueling an instinctive flight response. Then, without warning, the door slammed shut behind me. Darkness enveloped me. My breath quickened, panic clawing at my throat. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The air was thick with dread as I stood, enveloped in shadow, feeling the oppressive darkness like a weight on my chest. I fumbled for the doorknob behind me, panic clawing at my throat. It wouldn't budge. My heart raced as I forced myself to face the encroaching blackness, remembering tales of spirits and specters that thrived in places just like this. That I turned slowly, my pulse resonating in my ears like a war drum. Just beyond the faint glow of the window, the room pulsed with an energy I could almost grasp, a sinister electricity that pricked at my skin. My breaths came in shallow gasps, driven by a growing paranoia. I was being watched. Then, a bray of the cold, unnatural gust whipped past me, ruffling my hair momentarily. The shadows shifted, and a figure emerged at the edge of my sight. Darker than the blackness that populated the corners of the room, it twisted and contorted as if resisting the very fabric of reality. My heart skipped. There was no escaping it now. No, I whispered, the syllable cracking like ice underfoot. The shape seemed to heed my desolation. It drew closer, a grotesque parody of the human form, limbs elongated and facial features indistinct like a watercolor painting dragged through a storm. Help me, I thought I heard it say, the voice a haunting echo reverberating in my mind, oozing fatally sweet hope tainted with despair. The temperature dropped even lower, frost nipping at my exposed skin as I realized I could see my own breath swirling in the emptiness that my legs betrayed me. I staggered back, desperate to escape the advance of the dark figure, but the room seemed to expand endlessly around me. The walls blurred, and reality warped, a nightmarish funhouse in which the exit fled before me. Help me, the voice echoed again, hauntingly seductive. I felt tears pooling in my eyes, the sting igniting an unexpected anger within. What do you want from me? I managed to spit out, the sound shaky but defiant, each word laden with fear. The figure paused, its head tilting grotesquely to the side, and the temperature plummeted further. Noise surged within the walls, scratching like fingernails clawing to break free, whispers curling through the air like smoke. I became acutely aware of a new sensation. The floor beneath my feet felt alive, pulsing with a rhythm unknown to me, like a heartbeat echoing from the bowels of the earth. From somewhere deep in the darkness, another shape emerged, a creature altogether different, something with no skin, no eyes, writhing as though the very essence of evil dripped from its form like oil and water. I could feel it grasping at the edges of my sanity, pulling me toward despair, compelling me to yield, to join in its macabre dance of suffering. Help me, the first figure repeated, this time a frenzied chant, harmonizing with the monstrous sounds of the second. I shook my head, horrified, and turned to run. I lunged at the door, grasping the knob with desperate strength. It turned. A miracle. As I bolted through, the shadows reached for me, tendrils snapping inches from my back. I burst into the hallway, heart pounding with adrenaline. But I wasn't free. Behind me, the laughter of countless whispers filled the air, a cacophony of malicious joy. Suddenly, the lights flickered. I glanced down the darkened corridor, the dim light creating elongated shadows that seemed to dance along the walls, mocking me. Then I felt the air crackled, thickening with an otherworldly energy. I turned, apprehension swelling in me like a tidal wave. At the far end of the hall, a ghostly figure materialized. It floated slightly above the ground, eyes like black pits of despair locking onto mine with an inexorable hunger. The same chilling whisper coursed through the air, a sinister chant wrapping around the words, compelling me, drawing me in. Join us. As the walls of the house pulsed with life, I realized the door to my sanctuary was no longer behind me. Searing fear gripped my heart as I stumbled backward, colliding with something cold and solid. I whipped around, and my breath left me in a staggering gasp. It wasn't the wall, the figure from before loomed in the shadows behind me, its spectral hands reaching out. Instinctively, I screamed as I crashed against the force that held me, and that was when I saw it, a horrific reminder in the shadows, something terrible that had been there the entire time, waiting for me to notice. The last thing I remembered before everything went dark was the echo of their voices, merging into a hellish harmony that promised unending torment. And as the consciousness of the place flooded over me, suffocating me in mounting dread, I realized with soul-crushing clarity, this was just the beginning. An ear-splitting crack reverberated through the air as everything went black. The silence that followed was overwhelming, a deadly stillness that pressed against my ears. Time stretched into an eternity as I felt myself suspended in a void beyond thought, an absence of light and sound that gnawed at my sanity. Then, a single whisper broke through the darkness, as chilling as a serpent's hiss. Sleep, dear one, and just like that, I fell. Spiraled downward into the depths of my own fears, my mind fragmented, haunted by the faces of those I had lost, their eyes wide with terror, mouths frozen mid-scream, each a reminder of the inevitability of loneliness and despair. My breath quickened as visions slashed through the void, doors slamming shut, laughter echoing from distant hallways, and hands reaching through jagged fractures of time. With a jolt, I woke, my body slumped against a wooden floor rough against my skin. The air was stagnant, stale with the scent of mildew, and a single flickering bulb swung overhead, casting erratic shadows that slithered like snakes. Panic surged once again, but this time, I forced myself to sit up and scan my surroundings. I was in a cramped room littered with debris that whispered of years gone by. Tattered drapes, broken furniture, and a mirror, cracked and tarnished, hung crookedly on the wall. In it, I saw not just my reflection, but something far more sinister, a fleeting shadow just behind me, lurching as the light pulsed with the intensity of a heartbeat that I spun around, heart racing, but the room remained empty, save for the remnants of despair that had overtaken everything. The floor creaked ominously below me, communicating secrets of an ancient horror. I closed my eyes for a moment, trying to calm the cacophony of whispers in my head, desperate to understand what had pulled me here. Then I heard its soft footfalls creeping closer, deliberate and slow. They nudged my senses, the sound of nails dragging against the wood floor like fingernails scraping bone. I turned and caught another figure emerging from the gloom, pale skin stretched thin over its skeletal form. "Why did you wake me?" It rasped, voice echoing as if it came from deep within the earth. Who are you?" I stammered, every instinct screaming for me to run, to flee from this nightmare come to life. The creature stepped closer, eyes like empty sockets boring into my soul, and I stumbled backward, pressing myself against the wall. "You've called to us," it intoned, voice a sickening melody that reverberated in my bones. "You awakened the hunger." With each word, the air thickened, suffocating my resolve. I felt the darkness seep into my mind, preying upon my fears, conjuring images of the souls trapped within these wall, specters yearning for liberation through unrelenting torment. "Please. I didn't mean to." I whimpered, fighting against the palpable despair that clawed at my sanity. "I just want to go home," but the creature merely smiled, an expression devoid of warmth, teeth jagged and sharp before it extended a bony hand toward me. It beckoned with a crooked finger, and the echoes of laughter, distant and mirthless, reverberated through the air, swelling like a storm. "You can't leave, dear one. You belong to us now." As I stood frozen, paralyzed by fear, lightning shattered the darkness outside, illuminating what lay beyond the window, the silhouettes of countless figures milling about, their hollow eyes fixated on the house. Each face twisted in anguish and despair, locked in a perpetual cycle of suffering, their mouths forming silent screams. The knowledge crashed over me like waves, and suddenly, I remembered the stories. Those who had come here before me. The warnings ingrained in the folklore whispered about summer nights, a place where the lost gathered, waiting for souls to join their eternal lament. "Mama?" A tiny voice sounded from the corner of the room, fragile and innocent, piercing through the monstrous sounds and swirling chaos. An apparition materialized, a girl barely older than 5, eyes wide and terrified, looking for protection amongst the darkness. "Run!" I screamed, reaching out for her as the shadows surged forward. The creature's expression morphed into rage, a tempest of malice unleashed, but before I could grasp the girl's hand, tendrils of darkness coiled around my arms, pulling me back. The whispers crescendoed into frantic shrieks, urging me to give in, to surrender to them and become part of the chaos. The last thing I saw before they dragged me into the shadows was the child, her face frozen in pure horror, watching as the darkness engulfed me. With a final gasp, I felt myself slipping away, into a realm of anguish, the laughter growing louder, swarming around me like a pack of wild beasts ready to claim their prey. And just before everything faded to black, I heard her voice, soft but resolute. "You can't leave. You have to help me." Then silence fell, and I understood the truth that I would never be free again. The moment the darkness receded, I was thrown into an endless hall of memories, walls lined with flickering images of despair and hopelessness. I stumbled through the abyss, my heart hammering in my chest, the child's voice echoing in my mind. "You have to help me." Those words haunted me like a ghost, trailing my every step, an insistent beckoning that gnawed at my resolve. The hallway twisted and turned, stretching beyond the realms of logic. Every footfall resonated with the whispers of those lost within these maddening corridors. I pressed against the walls, feeling the coldness seep into my flesh, and as I did, the flickering scenes coalesced. Faces so familiar, yet utterly foreign, drifted through the air around me, their mouths opening and closing in silent screams, their eyes wide with an emptiness that chilled me to my core. Suddenly, the corridor split to the left, illuminated by a soft, sickly glow. Compelled by an instinct far beyond my own, I turned and walked towards it. With every step, the air thickened, heavy with tension, until I found myself in a chamber that vibrated with an unsettling hum. Bare walls surrounded me, and in the center stood an altar fashioned from bone, ancient and grotesque, remnants of past evils carved into its surface. It was here that the disembodied voices grew loud, a cacophony of pleas and curses swirling around me. "Help us," they cried in unison, a ghastly symphony of desperation. "You summoned us." As if in response, a gust of wind swept through the chamber, chilling me to my bones and extinguishing the unnatural glow that illuminated my surroundings. Darkness reclaimed the space, oppressive and disorienting. I stumbled, trying to regain my footing, but my cries were swallowed by the shadows that continued to thicken around me, and then I saw a gnarled figure emerging from the darkness, ethereal and translucent yet menacingly tangible. Its eyes glowed with a fiery malice, a stark contrast against its sunken features. It hovered before me, a remnant of humanity twisted beyond recognition. "Oh, how it pleases us," it rasped, its voice slithering into my mind. "To see the living stray into our domain, their innocence traded for agony." It extended a decayed hand, fingers like twisted roots clawing at the air. A cloud of souls danced around it, frail and contorted, drawn to it like moths to a flame. "You wish to help the child," it laughed, an unsettling sound echoing through the void. "But to do so, you must sacrifice your own light." "No. I can't," I gasped, realizing what it sought. The shadows enveloped me tighter, constricting any thoughts of escape, and I could feel an insidious hunger gnawing at my spirit, eager to feast on my fear and despair. The images began to flash before me, a whirlwind of fragmented memories twisted into nightmarish scenes. My life passed through the lens of suffering and loss, the faces of loved ones fading from existence, their voices drowned by the relentless whispers. In the chaos, I glimpsed the child again, desperately clasping at the shadows surrounding her, each second pulling her closer to the altar. "Help me!" she called once more, but this time her voice became a fractured echo of my own desperation. My heart sank at the futility of my efforts, and I knew I couldn't turn my back on her. Drawing upon every ounce of strength I had left, I fought against the suffocating darkness and pressed forward toward the altar. I could sense the spirits gathering around me, their anguish feeding the dark entity as it roared with laughter, the sound piercing through the veil of my thoughts like a jagged knife. "You would truly sacrifice your soul for her?" it hissed as I moved closer, the shadows writhing and swirling around me like a tempest. "You do not know what lies beyond. Let her go," I shouted, voice trembling but resolute. In that moment, I felt the truth surge through my veins, a fiery need to protect the innocent, to not let another soul be lost here. As I reached the altar, I felt the pulsating energy of despair translate into something else, hope. The moment my fingers grazed the surface, a blinding light erupted from the bones, illuminating the chamber and pushing back the darkness that clawed at my spirit, but it was not enough. The entity howled fierce and wild, each word an incantation of dread that rattled the very foundations of the world around me. "You think you can outshine us? There is a price to pay, dear one." Pain lanced through me, sharper than any blade, as tendrils of darkness lunged to ensnare me. I gasped, feeling my soul being tugged at a warring force threatening to tear my essence from my body. As shadows encircled me, I caught a glimpse of the child, her wide eyes reflecting the light growing stronger, but it was flashing perilously. Some enormous force had awakened, and as my heart battered against my ribcage, a realization struck me, cold and hard. If I unleashed the burst of light, would it save her? Or consume me entirely? The last thing I saw before I lost my grip on everything was her innocent face, now twisted in despair. "Please, don't leave Methan," darkness roared in laughter, drowning her words as a blinding flash engulfed us both. As the light faded, a haunting question echoed in the void: what horror awaited on the other side of the altar? And then nothing. In the stillness that followed the light's vanishing, there was a palpable silence, pressing down around me like a shroud. It felt wrong, too quiet, too empty. My senses tingled as I blinked, struggling to adjust to the darkness that greeted me once more. But this time, it was different. An unsettling density permeated the air, thick with an electric anticipation that raised the hair on my arms. That I stood alone, or at least I thought I was. The memory of the altar lingered just beyond my sight, echoing with remnants of the light that had once danced upon its surface. But the child, had she disappeared? I opened my mouth to call her name, but the sound was swallowed by the air, as if the very atmosphere had conspired to muffle my cries. Desperation surged within me. "Hello? Where are you?" I shouted, my voice trembling. No response came, only an oppressive stillness that felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. I took a step forward, my heart racing. The pinpricks of unease festered with each heartbeat, taking root in my gut. As I moved, the air shifted. I could almost hear something, the rhythmic tapping in the distance, faint but distinct. I followed the sound, emboldened by the flicker of hope that perhaps the child had not been lost after all. Each step brought the tapping into sharper focus, but it wasn't a comforting sound, it was frantic, like the desperate rattle of nails against wood. The corridor ahead twisted darkly, its edges defined by shadows writhing as if alive. I pressed onward, each footfall echoing in the oppressive quiet. The taps grew louder, more frantic, sending chills crawling down my spine. Then I noticed a glimmer of something metallic wedged into the wall. Catching what little light still managed to seep through the darkness, with trembling hands, I pried it free, a small, rusted bell, clinging to hope and memories long faded. As I held it up, a sense of wrongness prickled at the back of my mind. This bell had been here, forgotten, a forgotten warning perhaps. The faint tapping morphed into a soft, pleading whisper. "Ring it please." My heartbeat quickened as the child's voice fluttered back into my consciousness, mixing with the haunting echoes of that earlier moment. I looked around, desperately searching for her, but the shadows mocked my gaze, closing in like sinister shadows gathering strength. "Help me find her," I whispered to the air. The bell trembled in my grip as if it had something to say. It vibrated with an intensity that made my bones ache. Without thinking, I struck it against the wall, the sound reverberating through the maze, cutting through the shadow-stilled silence. The clang was deafening, igniting the atmosphere around me. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. I started to question my sanity when suddenly, the darkness shuddered and began to shift. From beneath the shadows, figures began to emerge, twisting and contorting, their forms skeletal and ethereal. These were souls trapped by the darkness, their faces a grotesque mask of anguish, eyes filled with pleading and despair, their mouths gaping wide as if they were forever screaming soundless cries. That I stumbled backward, terror clutching my throat. "What are you?" I gasped, the shadows encroaching closer, pooling at my feet like a predator waiting to strike. They converged, forming a ring around me, and in agonizing unison, they whispered, "We made a pact for our freedom, a child's light for our release." The bell thrummed in my hand, its vibrations now filling the space with a ghastly melody, harmonizing with the anguished whispers. The shadows recoiled for a moment, but the moment of reprieve was fleeting. They lunged forward, reaching with elongated, bony fingers, trying to pull me toward them. "Help us. She's a vessel. You must bring her light." The voices screamed in a chaos of despair, the sound reverberating within the chamber like a nightmare made real. My throat tightened, and tears welled in my eyes. The last of my resolve faltered as images of the child danced grotesquely in my mind, bloodied and torn, the promise of her innocence tarnished. By the depths of this darkness, and then I heard it in a soft, fragile whisper, so far away yet crystal clear. "Help me." It was a beacon, a call to action that surged through me with the fury of a wildfire. In that moment, I understood the price of freedom. They wished to feed on her light. I needed to protect her, but how could I fight against the clamoring souls now turning my own thoughts against me? My heart raced as the shadows closed in, and I clutched the bell tighter, regret pooling in my heart. "I won't let you take her," I screamed defiantly, the words escaping me like a warrior's battle cry. And then, without warning, a figure burst forth from the thrumming shadows, smaller, fragile, a glimmering silhouette trying to breach the darkness wrapped around it. It was her. "Don't leave me," the child cried, pleading, her innocence radiating even in the malevolence of this realm, causing the shadows to reel back momentarily, but time was slipping away. "You must choose." The chorus of tormented souls roared, the dark energy around us swirling, furious and untamed. "Bring her light or perish." I was torn, caught in an agonizing motive, and as I grasped the bell, the specters lunged, their gnarled fingers reaching for both of us. In that horrifying instant, I realized there may be no correct choice. As the rhythmic thudding of the child's heartbeat echoed in the silence of the predatory dark, and the walls of the labyrinth began to close in, I felt the chilling touch of the shadows against my skin. Would I sacrifice her, or would I risk everything to save her? With the shadows threatening to engulf us, the sound of one last desperate shriek rang out. Then, the room began to tremble violently. Was that laughter or agony merging into a singular experience? The shadows recoiled, but something darker loomed behind them, something far worse. Choose now. The light or the darkness, it whispered, and then, a scream not from me but from the child, piercing through my soul like a shard of ice, and I knew we were running out of time. The walls trembled in synchrony with the pounding of my heart as the shadowy figures lunged. Instinct replaced thought. I grabbed the child's small hand, feeling her warmth, her pulsing life contrasting starkly against the cold encroachment of the spirits. Run! I shouted, dragging her with me as the darkness swirled. But as we raced, the air twisted again, and the corridor seemed to elongate impossibly. The end was never within reach, each turn feeding the encroaching dread that gripped my heart. Behind us, the cacophony of tormented souls grew louder, their wails intertwining with the very fabric of the air, distorting the cries into something indistinguishable. She belongs to us. They screamed, their words mingling with the sound of breaking glass, echoing through the labyrinth like a trap clapping shut. That we ran blindly, a futile attempt to escape the relentless horror that pursued us. As the shadows stalked, I could feel their icy breath against the nape of my neck, caressing my skin with phantom fingers, coaxing me to turn back, to surrender to the darkness. Where are we going? The child whimpered, her voice trembling as doubt crept into her mind. Somewhere safe. I shouted, forcing down the rising tide of panic. What did I know of safety in this twisted realm? The very walls seemed to conspire against us, closing in around me like the jaws of a beast ready to devour its prey. Then, just ahead, I saw the altar bathed in a faint, ghostly glow, pulsating rhythmically as if it were alive. My heart raced with conflicting emotions. It was both a beacon and a trap. That way. I pointed as we turned, every fiber in my being screaming at me to keep moving forward, but as we approached, the light flickered unsteadily, revealing the altar's surface riddled with strange symbols that pulsated with a sickly, otherworldly energy. The bell in my hand vibrated violently, an unholy connection that I could barely comprehend. We need to reach it. I urged the child, whose innocent eyes were overshadowed by fear and confusion. With each tentative step toward the altar, the shadows writhed hungrily, their forms mixing with the light in a grotesque dance. The figures twisted, their anguish palpable, and in that moment, I could see the trapped souls more clearly. Some bore familiar faces, those I had lost for reasons long buried, still pleading, still desperate. Suddenly, the child's hand slipped from mine. She was tugged backward as if caught by an unseen force. No! I cried, but the shadows tightened around her like chains, dragging her against her will into their gaping void. That I lunged forward, grabbing her wrist just in time, skin against skin, my grip fierce and protective. You won't take her! I screamed, trying to summon the last bits of strength to pull her from their clutches. Help us! The spirits sang as one, their voices merging into an unbearable harmony that reached deeper than the surface. They spoke of sacrifice, of the price of salvation, echoing the very thoughts I was trying to push away. She is our salvation, you must make a choice. I fell to my knees, the weight of their demands crashing over me like a tidal wave. The child writhed, eyes wide with fear, terror mirrored in my own. Mommy? She whimpered, and that one word shattered my resolve. My heart splintered, twisting as I fought the darkness that sought to consume her. Hold on to me! I shouted, pulling with everything I had. The shadows writhed and writhed, thrumming with a dark cacophony that sought to drown out my will. In a final, desperate surge of energy, I grasped the bell once more, raising it high with the remnants of my last hope. This will end now. I struck it against the altar, the sound slicing through the turmoil like a knife. The bell rang out a piercing note that resonated through the darkness, a counterpoint to the shadows that screamed with displeasure. Light erupted, flooding into the space, banishing the oppressive grasp of the darkness as it flickered against the metal surface. The shadows reeled, pulling back, shrieking in retaliation, but then, the ground beneath me started to crack, fissures appearing underfoot, spreading like veins of ice. The altar's glow weakened, flickering dangerously, and the child's terrified face shifted. Her eyes now flickered with a different fear. "Mama, I'm scared," she sobbed, with a heart-wrenching lurch. Just as the pulsating darkness momentarily stilled, I caught a glimpse of what lay beyond the veil of shadows. I saw something that chilled me to the core, a vast, shifting horror that lay within, a presence imperceptible yet tangible, crawling with malevolence, watching, waiting. Do it. The anguished spirits roared, but the desperation in their voices transformed into a sinister glee as the rift widened, revealing a gateway that seemed to swallow the very essence of light itself. That I felt the cold grip of despair tightening around my throat. "No. Not her." I cried out, but it was too late. The bell fell from my grasp, and time wrenched itself away from all reason. The shadows surged forward, tightening their hold, and in that anguishing moment, the walls echoed with laughter deep, resonant, and unyielding. Something ancient and unfathomable lashed out from the darkness, its intent clear. In that breath, before it all went black, I understood I was the one to be sacrificed. And as my consciousness flickered away, all that remained was the child's scream mixing with the chilling laughter of the abyss. The silence that followed was worse than the chaos. It dripped with an unnatural stillness, each second stretching painfully, taunting me with the possibility of awakening. I was suspended in darkness, weightless and aware. Suddenly, a piercing pain stabbed through my being. I gasped, my senses ignited by the sharpness of reality returning. I opened my eyes, but the world that greeted me was not the sanctuary of familiarity I had hoped for. I lay on cold stone, slick with moisture, every breath a pang of dread settling deep in my core. The altar pulsed dimly in the distance, its surface now stained, swirls of blood like crimson mingling with the ethereal light that flickered uncertainly. I tried to push myself up, but my limbs felt heavy as if I were submerged in water. Panic clawed at my throat like a ravenous beast. Where is she?" I croaked, my voice barely more than a whisper. The very air tasted wrong, bitter and metallic, dragging me deeper into the abyss. As I oriented myself, the flickering around the altar grew stronger, illuminating the room. Every surface was adorned with the anguished faces of the trapped souls, their mouths agape in silent screams. I reached for them, wanting to help, but the memories of those I had lost flooded my mind. Each face morphed, flickered, and transformed into a grotesque parody of itself, a mockery harbored within the shadows. Then I heard Ida's soft, childlike giggle echoing across the chamber. The sound made the hairs on my neck stand on end. "Help me." It was her voice, a me little girl yet tinged with layers of despair. Where was she? I struggled to stand, fighting against the weight of the darkness that clung to me. "Please," I pleaded, but my own voice crashed against the stone walls, revealing the futility of my cries. In pursuit of that haunting sound, I staggered toward the altar. The stone beneath my feet felt alive, pulsing with the rhythm of breath, as if the very ground was an extension of the shadows surrounding me. Each step forward brought forth a disturbing echo, as though the stones whispered ominous secrets I wasn't meant to hear. Then, the laughter turned sinister. The shadows began to wriggle, twining around the altar like serpents emerging from their lair. I felt their presence, crawling over my skin, as if testing my resolve. Gasping, I reached the altar, unwilling to give in to the dread, clinging to hope in the sound of her voice. "Where are you?" I cried out, desperate to grasp onto something beyond the spiraling chaos. But the altar revealed another truth. Symbols once thought merely etched into its surface began to reshape, glowing brighter with each muffled heartbeat. They blazed, shifting into words I could not decipher, but the dark energy radiating from them was palpable. I could see the ethereal mist swirl above the altar, coalescing into a monstrous silhouette, bloated and writhing. "Join me," it growled, a chill enveloping the room. The very essence of the air thickened, heavy with unspeakable terror. I stumbled back, clenching my fists at my sides, confronting the entity forming above the altar. "Release her," I shouted, the heat of my anger igniting my inherent will. It chuckled deeply, resonating through the very fabric of this accursed place. "Foolish mortal," it rasped, its words like stones dropping into an abyss. Your child is the key. With her, we shall transcend beyond this feeble existence. She will become a part of us, and ye shall be forever bound to the shadows. My heart sank with the weight of despair. No. I considered the choice that was forced upon me. I had witnessed the pain of those before me, either to sacrifice the innocent or to become an eternal prisoner within this cycle of horrors. No. I screamed defiantly, backing away from the altar. The laughter rang louder, a cacophony of madness that wrapped around me like a noose. Then, I noticed a flicker of light at the edge of my vision. My heart raced as I turned to see spectral figures arising from the shadows. They glided back and forth with forgotten memories in their eyes, but they didn't raise their hands in pleading. Instead, they pointed toward the altar and then toward me. Complete the ritual, they intoned in unison, their voices a haunting echo that quivered with urgency. My blood ran cold. I turned toward the altar, shaking violently as dread washed over me. The dark entity hung heavy in the air, shifting and swirling, drawing closer to me, a predator craving fulfillment. Do it. It hissed, desperation drenching its dark presence. Offer your heart's true want to me. In that moment, I understood, it wanted my despair. It craved my soul, my agony. And as shadows writhed around me, their whispers grew louder, drowning out my thoughts, offering both salvation and ruin. With a sudden surge of clarity, I resolved not to submit. I would rather embrace the darkness on my own terms than to sacrifice the one thing I could never forsake. No. I bellowed defiantly. You will not take her. In defiance, I reached for the remnants of the energy that thrummed within the altar, desperately willing the bell from deep within the shadows. Then, I raised my voice in a final plea, combining my heart's cry with the bell's resonance, hoping against all hope that maybe, just maybe, I could shatter this cycle. But instead of the anticipated harmony, a shriek erupted, the entity recoiling as the darkness warred with the light. The altar cracked wider, and what lay beyond was no longer an abyss, but a swirling gateway of nightmare. As reality twisted around me, the darkness lashed out once more, grasping, shredding, tearing. And then, with a blinding flash, everything imploded. What I found myself in as the dust settled was eerily quiet. No more laughter, no more shadows, only the echoes of solitude filled the air. Mommy? The heart-wrenching whisper drifted from the depths. Zoe. I called, rejuvenated with renewed vigor, pushing through the oppressive silence. But as I turned, a low rumble erupted throughout the chamber, followed by the echo of footsteps approaching. And there, at the threshold, a figure loomed, cloaked in darkness, the very embodiment of despair. My servant, it hissed, eyes glowing with the torment of ages, you've chosen the wrong side. And for the first time, I felt a horrifying certainty. The shadows were only the beginning. I felt a cold sweat drench my brow as the figure advanced. It was draped in tattered robes that billowed like smoke in the still air, each movement accompanied by a soft rustle reminiscent of whispered secrets. Shadows curled around its feet, writhing and twitching, as if they were alive and eager to partake in the terror unfolding. Mommy? Zoe's voice pierced through my fog of fear, a fragile thread in the storm of despair. I twisted around, scanning the chamber for any sign of her, but the shadows seemed to shift and contort, obscuring my vision. The air crackled with a pulse of energy, dark and alive, suffocating my will to move. Zoe. Incoming. My voice trembled, but I forced my feet to push against the stone floor, inching forward toward the grotesque entity. Each step felt treacherous, weighted by the suffocating presence that coiled around me. Your resolve is commendable, the figure growled, a voice that struck like venom coursing through the bones. But futile. She's not here for you anymore. The impenetrable darkness thickened, weaving through the air, and I felt its cold fingers trail along my neck, sending shivers cascading down my spine. You will find her if you survive. Unfurling its hand, the cloaked entity gestured toward the altar. The crimson symbols flared to life, illuminating the room with an ominous pulse. It was a beckoning, a siren's call that wrapped around the edges of my sanity. I could feel the tendrils of uncertainty wrapping tighter, a suffocating embrace that threatened to draw me under. No. I cried, hot tears spilling down my cheeks, anger fueling a surge of adrenaline. You don't own me. The air shifted, a new sound ripping through the chamber. Cacophony of howls echoed from beyond the altar, like the wails of the restless spirits yearning for release. Or was it the harmony of a new nightmare summoning a feast? I was paralyzed, caught on the very precipice of my choice. Suddenly, without warning, the ground buckled beneath me, and I was falling, crashing through the gaping maw of the altar's energy. I screamed as darkness enveloped me, swallowing my voice like a moth into a flame. As I cascaded through the chaos, flashes of memories ignited in the shadows around me. Screaming faces. Bloodied hands reaching out. My heart pounded louder than the abyss. Only now it felt tethered to something deeper, something more substantial beneath the surface of terror. Then everything stopped. Silence washed over me. In the void, I could feel the brush of something cold against my skin, lifting me back into consciousness. I gasped for air, finding myself sprawled atop a cold marble floor, slick with moisture, resembling the altar, but this one was alive with a pulsing white light emanating from its core. I squeezed my eyes shut, straining against the overwhelming confusion and repairing the frayed edges of my sanity. My heart raced, a drum echoing in the stillness. But I heard it thin, a soft, melodic hum, sweet yet haunting. I opened my eyes. The ethereal glow radiated from the centerpiece of a great chamber, a place that mirrored the altar, but here, vibrant colors danced, casting a spectral light that lay soft against my skin. Zoe! I cried out again, propelled by despair. The melody swelled, harmonizing with my voice, growing louder, wrapping around me as colors shifted from unsettling blues to garish reds. I realized how the walls seemed to pulse, alive with the resonance of that melody, drawing me closer. Suddenly, a shadow descended amongst the colors, and I recoiled, heart pounding against my ribs as a familiar figure emerged from the depths. Of spectral Zoe, translucent yet shimmering, the light refracting around her like a shroud. "Mommy!" she cried, her voice sweet yet laced with an unnatural echo. "I'm here. Don't be afraid." I extended my arms, hoping to pull her back into safety, yet, she remained anchored in place, eyes wide with fear, a flicker of something darker lurking behind her gaze. The delicate expression shifted, cracking into anguish as the light around her began to warp. "Mommy," she intoned, voice shaky, as her form flickered like a broken light bulb. "It wants me. Help me." A wave of despair crashed over me as the melodic hum abruptly froze, stilled by a deeper resonance, as if the fabric of reality itself strained to contain what lay beneath. "Let her go!" I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat, but I felt the shadows from beyond wrap around my ankles, holding me, anchoring me down. Suddenly, the chamber erupted, shattering into a kaleidoscope of light and darkness as the melodic hum twisted into shrieks of terror. The walls convulsed, and everything plunged into chaos, a cataclysmic implosion erupting in every direction. And then, just like that, everything shifted again, the chaos silencing into an eerie calm. The glow faded, leaving in its wake a haunting silence, echoing with Zoe's fading cries. "Mommy!" In the darkness, I could see the approaching silhouettes, an army of the condemned, drawn forth from the shadow's depths, their faces shadowed but unmistakable. Each soul a prisoner, each bearing the weight of an eternity. The figures surged forward from the mass, laughing joyfully, a shriek of madness that buzzed with horrific glee. "Your choice is clear," it cackled heartily, sharp teeth glinting in the half-light. "Join us, or lose her forever." My heart seized, knowing that the shadows were only closing in. And as I stood frozen, paralyzed by this horrifying ultimatum, the shadows beckoned me closer, shrieking for my surrender like a whirling tempest. Anxiety clawed at my chest, suffocating harder with every passing second, while Zoe's echoes faded like whispers into the night. The terrifying truth hung in the air like a guillotine. Would I become one of them to save her, or would I lose her altogether? Before I could conjure a decision, laughter rippled through the air, piercing the silence, insidious, haunting, as I realized I'd unwittingly fed the dark, and it was just beginning to awaken. The void shifted once more, pulling me into a new realm. I stumbled forward, kicking up dust from the fractured ground that thrummed with pulse-like rhythms. The darkness had eyes, I was certain of it, watching my every move as I navigated this hellish landscape. Mommy. Zoe's voice reverberated through the cavernous expanse, carrying a hint of desperation and dread that sent chills racing across my skin. Zoe. Where are you? I screamed back, desperation morphing into panic as the shadows caressed my legs, whispering promises of despair as they grazed past me like icy hands seeking entry into my very soul. The air grew colder, tightening around me as I stumbled into a clearing. The once vibrant colors shimmering in ethereal hues had died, replaced by murky browns and sickly greens, hanging like a death shroud over the landscape. A massive bonfire crackled hungrily in the center, sending up tendrils of smoke that intertwined with the darkness, coiling around me, rendering me paralyzed with dread. In the shadows, figures emerged, ragged and frail. Their sunken eyes glimmered with an otherworldly hunger, and I realized they were drawn to the fire, swaying like puppets dancing to a haunting melody that resonated in the air. They were the remnants of lost souls, abandoned to a cycle of torment, a reflection of what awaited me if I didn't find Zoe. Come, join us. One of them croaked, its voice level and smooth yet ragged as bark. You're already one of us. Just let go. No. I whispered, shuddering at the thought. Their hollow expressions twisted in pain and longing, haunting reminders that there was no solace in surrender. I won't give in. I will find her. I pressed onward through the tightening throng of souls as they cackled and pulled at the fringes of my sanity, their fingers grazing my skin like thorns scraping against a wound, a sharp reminder that I was losing the battle against my own fears. As I moved deeper into the clearing, the shadows thickened. An icy wind swept through, swirling about as if alive, mocking my desperation. There, deeper in the darkness, I saw the outline of a figure, a spectral silhouette cradling something in its arms. Zoe. I choked on her name, the hope swelling in my chest quickly snuffed out by the chilling realization that it wasn't her. Come to me, it beckoned with a voice dripping honeyed malice, echoing through the air with seductive promise. I will grant you peace. I will free you from your burden. The figure melted away, leaving only a translucent visage of fear. Every ounce of me screamed to move, to flee, but as I turned, the dark energy began to vibrate, pulling against me like a strong wind, tethering me to the spot that I prepared to fight the shadows. Every ounce of determination ignited inside me, but then I heard Ida's soft, childlike giggle, echoing in the darkness behind me. It was unmistakably Zoe, playful yet coated in an unsettling echo that reverberated off the walls like a ghost singing a lullaby. Mommy. She echoed, laughter intertwined with distress. No, Zoe. I cried, spinning back towards the sound, heart racing. Where are you? The shadows receded momentarily, revealing Heron apparition flickering on the brink of existence, tantalizingly close yet eternally beyond my reach. Help me, Mommy. Her spectral form faded in and out of focus, trapped in a dimension of torment. And with every cry, the shadows surged closer, whispering promises of surrender that threatened to envelop us both. Zoe, incoming. A gust of wind whipped around me, knocking me off balance. I fought against the haze that threatened to shroud my mind, determined to reach her, but the darkness began to transform, morphing into grotesque shapes that writhed and twisted, clawing their way toward me. Suddenly, the ground beneath me trembled violently as if the very earth understood the weight of my choice. You can still join us, feel what it's like to be free, shadows whispered in a chorus, their voices thick with promise. Before I could respond, the vision of Zoe flickered again, slipping further away into the maw of eternity. Mommy. Her voice grew fainter, merging with the howling winds, resonating through my mind. I will not lose you. I screamed, my voice cracking with desperation. Stay with me, Zoe. But the fire in the center of the clearing glowed brighter, luring the souls closer, and with it came the flickering light of a revolting clarity. No longer just lost souls, they morphed into figures I recognized. Faces of friends and family I'd never wanted to see again, twisted in agony, trapped in this realm just beyond reach, eternally pulling me toward despair. The shadowy figure loomed again, grinning wider now, sharper teeth gleaming with no trace of humanity. Join them, descend into the dark. Let go of this futile struggle and take your place among the lost. That harrowing moment, the weight of my choice pressed down, dovetailing the horrific realization that surrender was just as imprisoning as despair. But before I could breathe, a loud crack shattered the air. The fire suddenly exploded into blinding light, invading my senses as phantoms erupted from the flames, flinging themselves toward me like desperate embers drawn to flesh. I turned to escape the radiant chaos, but the ground shifted again, heaving upward with an agonizing force, and that laugh, the figure's sarcastic snicker, rumbled like thunder, swirling the darkness as it came crashing down. And then everything collapsed, dragging me into an obscuring void where echoes of cries and laughter morphed into a cacophony of dread, leaving me stranded in an interminable darkness void of hope. "Mommy, help!" Zoe's voice came again, piercing through the noise, drifting ever further, spiraling away into nothingness. It was then I knew. My time was running out. The shadows had found their vessel, ready to consume everything I was. And as I choked on the impending doom, the last remnants of Zoe's laughter faded, swallowed whole by the darkness that beckoned me, taunting the very essence of my sanity, twisting the final thread of my will against the abyss, when suddenly, a single hand reached out from the darkness, no longer a whisper. It was an anguished scream as I stumbled upon the chilling truth: she wasn't lost, she was waiting. Waiting for me to claim my place among the forsaken. The realization struck me like a thunderclap, spiraling through the shadows like a wildfire, igniting terror in every corner of my mind. My daughter was here with me, lost yet tethered, yearning for my help, but also anchored by a sinister force that threatened to plunge me into eternal darkness. Instinctively, I fought against the realization, fracturing my every hope. "No. I won't let them have you." I screamed into the obscurity, grappling with the truth strangling my heart. But the shadows pulsed with a macabre rhythm, vibrating with the promise of despair as they whispered sweet temptations. "Join us, embrace the eternal," they coaxed, their tones slithering around me like the very darkness itself, tightening with every breath. "Let go of what's holding you back. Let her join the chorus." "No." I shouted defiantly, grappling with my own fears as they clawed at my resolve. "You won't take her. I will not let her suffer for my failures." But the shadows shifted, morphing, reeling back in mock retreat, only to erupt into grotesque faces, each more familiar than the last, grinning with manic delight. Each visage flickered, reminiscent of those I had lost, their eyes hollow yet pleading, cycling through my memories like a horrific slideshow of reminders: a mother, a sister, friends, each a victim of the darkness that swarmed like a storm cloud over my mind, intensifying with each attempted movement. "Free us!" they begged, their cries merging into a chilling harmony that resonated with longing. That in the midst of it all, Zoe's voice rang clear: "Help me." A soft echo of desperation that filled me with dread. Reaching out, I strained against the pulsating shadows anchoring me down, summoning every ounce of strength to push forward. The darkness laughed, a cruel symphony that danced around us, taunting. "Foolish girl," the towering figure hissed, weaving closer from the depths of the abyss. "Your love is a weakness. You should have chosen differently. You could have had peace, but instead, you will be the harbinger of chaos." Thrumming with rage and desperate resolve, I forced myself forward, a primal need pushing me. I would not let her be devoured. "Zoe!" I screamed, feeling the flickering pulse of her presence extending toward me, urging me on. The ground trembled beneath my feet, shadows erupted, howling, as if seeking to snuff out my soul entirely, but then, like a beacon in the darkest night, I felt a radiant burst of energy surging through me, a flicker of hope ignited from depths of despair. It was the warmth of love, of rage against the darkness, the very essence of what made me a mother, and in that moment, clarity crashed through the chaos. "Join, user, be consumed." The entity growled, but this time, I was ready. I focused my energy, summoning the light inside me. "I will not let you take her." I roared, an incantation, rallying against the strength I felt ebbing from the shadows, and at once, I felt a surge of warmth cascading through the void, like petals raining down amidst flames. But the darkness twisted and contorted, enveloping me in a tightening embrace, a spectral snare designed to ensnare my very essence. You think mere light can free you, it screeched, writhing back, claws extending grotesquely toward my soul that I won't let her go. I cried as if each syllable shattered the grips of dread, the echoes harmonizing into a brilliant crescendo of light warmth ignited inside me and flowed outward like wildfire. I choose love. I choose life, and in that single, terrifying moment, I felt the truth of its ultimate betrayal. The shadows dropped away as I surged toward the entity enveloping Zoe, casting aside my fears with voracious fervor. I knew the truth, they were right, there was no escape. The shadows hungered, ravenous for more souls, and regardless of my intentions, the darkness pulsed with the sinister laughter of inevitability, watch as you lose her forever. It roared, but I willed the love in my heart to explode outward, making contact with the pulsating darkness, only to realize, all at once, the ruthlessness of the sacrifice demanded. What if I embrace it? I gasped, my heart twisting. Realization struck like a blow, my own shadow had come alive. I understood that to save her, I would have to become one of them, forever entwined with the dark rhythm of their lament. But maybe that would be our way to be together. Zoe! I shrieked one last time, the agony of loss piercing through my heart. I'll find you. You won't be alone. I can be with you, and in that final scream, the shadows cascaded forth, pulling me down into an abyss that felt like home. My eyes met my daughter's one last time as I was swallowed whole, knowing full well I had become a whisper amongst shadows, a new soul destined to wander, forever intertwined with the dark, relentlessly seeking her love. But as the violet haze enveloped me, a haunting reality settled. The shadows would never stop, would never relent, and neither would my heart in this unending torment. And in the silence, one echo remained, an eternal remnant of my choice, the fragmented laugh of a child mingled with the darkness surrounding, resolute and unyielding, calling out, "Hello, Mommy. Welcome back."